Have you ever wondered why you or maybe someone you know just keeps falling into the same old patterns?
Oh, definitely. Or why some conversations just, like, fizzle out. They seem to go nowhere.
Exactly. Even when you feel like you're really trying to connect. It's that nagging feeling, isn't it?
It is. Like you're stuck in some kind of loop or, constantly hitting a communication wall.
It truly is. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into transactional analysis, or TA. It's this really fascinating framework
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't just describe these patterns, but it actually gives you a practical map to understand them
Yeah.
and maybe even change them.
Founded by Eric Byrne. And it's more than just theory, isn't it? It's really a toolkit.
A toolkit, yeah, for understanding ourselves and, well, pretty much everyone around us.
So our mission in this deep dive really is to unpack the core principles that make TA so empowering.
Right. And get into those fundamental concepts like ego states and strokes.
Yeah, and the rules, those surprisingly precise rules that govern how we talk to each other, maybe even, our whole life paths.
We want to show you how TA offers these really actionable insights. So you can move beyond just knowing what you do.
To understanding why.
Exactly. Understanding why you do it, and crucially, how you can choose to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
Ian Tomlinson, his work is one of our key sources today. He calls TA a brilliant framework for understanding how we humans are wired up and why we do such peculiar things, which I love.
It's great phrasing. And what's really compelling about TA, I think, is its origin. Brené, he was initially trained in psychoanalysis,
Right.
but he felt that whole traditional approach was a bit too hierarchical and often pretty inaccessible for most people.
Okay.
So he developed TA specifically to be more equal, more transparent, and, just an understandable model for personal growth, for therapy. It really puts the agency directly into your hands.
And that emphasis on personal agency, it starts right at the foundation, doesn't it? With TA's three foundational philosophical assumptions.
Yeah, and these aren't just like nice ideas, they're quite radical departures from older psychological models.
Right.
And they set this incredibly empowering tone for, well, everything else in TA.
So what's the first one?
The first principle is actually revolutionary. People are okay.
Okay. What does that mean exactly? Okay.
Well, it isn't about saying every action is okay. It's more about a fundamental acceptance that every single person has inherent worth, inherent value, dignity.
Regardless of behavior or thoughts.
Exactly. Regardless of actions, thoughts, feelings, it's basically a declaration of equality. Everyone is as important as everyone else.
Wow. That immediately shifts the dynamic in any relationship, I imagine, especially therapy.
Totally. It means the responsibility for change, for the cure, so to speak, it's shared. It's not all on the therapist.
And you see that in practice in TA, right? With use of clear contracts.
Yes. Often written contracts that define the goals. It ensures everyone's on the same page, working together, collaboratively.
Makes sense. So building on that, what's the second principle?
The second one states, we can all think.
Simple enough?
Seems simple, but the implication is huge. If we have the capacity for thought, we also have the inherent ability to figure out what we want and how to get there.
So the role of a therapist, or maybe just a friend helping out, isn't to tell you what to do.
Exactly. It's not to dictate. It's to help you access your own wisdom. Because ultimately, you know what's best for you.
I like that. Our source uses a great analogy for this, doesn't it? Something about a mirror.
Yeah, it says it's a bit like wiping condensation off a mirror so we can see ourselves once more. It's about revealing the clarity that's already inside you. Just needs uncovering.
Lovely. Okay, and the third one.
The third principle, people decide their own destiny and have the power to change these decisions at any time.
Okay, that sounds big. Decide our own destiny.
It is big. The profound implication here is, well, if we got where we are today because of decisions we made, maybe unconsciously, maybe consciously,
Right.
then we inherently have the power to change those decisions and become who we really want to be.
Now, it's important to say that doesn't mean change is always easy, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It's often hard work. But the point is, even small shifts, small changes, they can build up, create real momentum.
And the model suggests barriers can be, what was the phrase?
Yeah, they can be kicked down or gone around, or sometimes if you look really closely, they might not be there at all. It's a very optimistic view, really.
It really is a remarkably optimistic view of human potential.
So if you tie these three core principles together,
Yeah.
they fundamentally redefine your role. You're not just passively receiving whatever life throws at you. You're an active architect of your own well-being, your own life path. It's a powerful foundation to start from.
Okay, so from that powerful foundation, TA then gives us this model of personality. the ego states.
That's right. A foundational model breaking down how we think, feel, and behave into these three distinct parts: parent, adult, and child.
And it's important, you always see them capitalized in TA literature, right? Parent,
Yeah.
adult, child, to show their ego states, not, your actual parents or literal children.
Precisely. It's a map of our internal psychological realities. So the parent ego state. This basically echoes the behaviors, the thoughts, the feelings we absorbed, soaked up from our childhood caretakers.
And other authority figures, presumably. Teachers, grandparents.
Exactly. It's like an internalized recording of how things are done, how to view the world, how to react.
And this parent state, it's not just one thing, is it? It has two different aspects.
Right. You've got the nurturing parent. Now, this can be really positive, that internal voice telling you, hey, you worked hard, take a break. That's nurturing parent.
Right.
But it can also show up negatively. Maybe overindulging yourself, that extra slice of cake you don't really need, or too much screen time when you should be resting. That can be the negative side of nurturing parent.
Interesting. And the other side?
Is the controlling parent. Again, this can be positive, like the voice reminding you, stop, look both ways before crossing the road. That's helpful control.
Essential, even.
Essential. But its negative side can be pretty harsh. Really critical, constantly telling you you're doing things wrong, you're not good enough, you're falling short.
Okay, so that's the parent. What about the adult?
Right, shifting gears, the adult ego state. This is all about processing reality, right here, right now.
The logical part.
Exactly. It's our logical, rational computer, you could say. It takes in information, evaluates it, guides our sensible actions, like driving a car, following instructions, solving a problem logically.
So it's focused on the present, not dragged down by the past or worried about the future.
Precisely. It's engaged with the present moment, ideally free from those past influences or future anxieties.
Got it. And the last one, the child.
And finally, yes, the child ego state. This embodies our childhood feelings and behaviors, both how we felt then and how those feelings might show up now.
And like the parent, this one also has substates.
It does. There's the adapted child. This is how we learn to, adapt to our environment growing up.
So like being the good kid, or maybe the rebellious one.
Exactly. It could be compliant and well-mannered, trying to please, or it could be rebellious, defiant, pushing back. It's all about responding to those external expectations, adapting to the rules, spoken or unspoken.
Okay. And the other child's state.
It is the free child. Oh, this is the unrestrained, spontaneous part of us.
The fun one.
Often, yes. The part that loves to run barefoot on a sunny beach, play without worrying what anyone thinks, laugh loudly, cry freely when sad, shout when angry. It acts without that self-consciousness, without worrying about others' opinions.
Right. So these three states, parent, adult, child, they're always interacting inside us.
Constantly. In a kind of internal negotiation or sometimes conflict. Think about that common urge to splurge on a new gadget, a new phone or tablet.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling, that internal battle.
Right. So in that scenario, your free child might be yelling, buy it. Buy it now. Meanwhile, your controlling parent steps in, maybe with a firm, no,
Right.
you can't afford that, citing practical reasons.
And then maybe the adapted child just feels a bit miserable and complies.
Yeah. Exactly. Leading to that familiar internal conflict, that tug of war so many of us feel.
Carol Rayburn's diet example, that illustrates this really well too, doesn't it?
It really does. It often kicks off with our controlling parent's internalized voice saying something critical, like, you're too fat.
Okay.
And that triggers the adapted child to unhappily comply, start cutting down on favorite foods, feeling deprived.
But then the moment you hit that target weight, or maybe even before.
Boom. The rebellious child often clicks in, as she puts it, rebels against all that deprivation.
And you go back to old habits.
Right back. And then come those familiar feelings of failure, frustration. It becomes a cycle.
So what's the TA solution there? How do you break that cycle?
Well, the TA insight is about bringing the nurturing parent into it, getting it to team up with the child almost.
How so?
By giving permission for the adult ego state to logically regulate weight, while the nurturing parent soothes the child. The child part needs to genuinely feel reassured, believe it won't be constantly deprived.
That makes sense. It needs to feel safe.
Exactly. And it's interesting, there was research cited Lister, Rosen, and Wright back in '85 looking at this kind of anti-diet approach.
Yeah.
They found that in the initial stages, many women actually gained a bit of weight.
Really? Why?
Because it simply takes time for that child part to feel truly safe enough, to trust that it won't be deprived again, to let go of that rebellion.
Wow. So the real insight here is just by understanding which ego state we're in, or maybe someone else is in, We get this map to our own internal struggles and maybe the power to consciously shift out of those reactive patterns.
Precisely. It's like getting an internal remote control, as you said. Gaining that awareness is key.
Okay, so from ego states, let's talk about strokes, another core TA concept.
Absolutely fundamental. Eric Berne defined a stroke simply as a unit of recognition. It's all about how we give and receive attention.
A unit of recognition.
Yeah.
Okay. And these strokes, they come in different flavors, right?
All sorts. They can be physical,
Yeah.
a pat on the back, a hug, or they can be verbal, anything from a quick hello to a long, deep conversation.
And conditional versus unconditional.
Right. A conditional stroke is tied to behavior. When you tidy your room, I think you're fantastic. An unconditional one is about being. You're fantastic, just because you exist.
Okay. And positive or negative, obviously.
Yep, positive. You're great. Well done. Negative. You stink. That was terrible.
And the critical thing here, TA says, is that we need these strokes.
Desperately. As social animals, humans crave strokes. Brené argued we crave them so much that we will pretty much do anything for them.
Wow. Anything.
Pretty much. And here's the kicker. If positive strokes aren't available, we'll often settle for negative ones.
Why? Why settle for negative?
Because the only thing worse, psychologically speaking, than being treated badly is being completely ignored, having your existence denied.
Ah, okay. Like the psychological impact of solitary confinement you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Or think about a child who keeps misbehaving. Often they're doing it just to get any kind of attention, even if it's negative attention, because it's better than being invisible.
That makes a disturbing amount of sense. Which brings us right up to today and social media.
The stroke bonanza.
Yeah. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they offer, as the source says, a constant and pretty endless source of strokes. Likes, comments, shares.
They absolutely do. We're wired for that connection, for that recognition, and these platforms deliver it constantly. In spades.
And there are real benefits, right? It's not all bad.
Not at all. Maintaining daily contact, easily exchanging ideas, finding communities instantly. That sense of belonging is crucial, especially now when maybe traditional community ties aren't as strong for some people.
So the insight is, if you use it mindfully, sensibly,
Yeah.
social media can actually enhance our face-to-face relationships. It's about finding that balance, being aware of, e-safety and boundaries.
Common sense stuff.
Right. But not dismissing the very real human need for recognition that it often taps into.
Which does raise a really important question, I think, for you listening. In this world where so much is mediated by technology, how do you make sure you're getting the quality and the quantity of strokes you genuinely need for your well-being, both online and offline?
That's a great question to reflect on. Okay, so we've got ego states, we've got our need for strokes. Now we move into what the source calls transactional analysis proper.
Right. This is where we zoom in and analyze the actual transactions.
The back and forth.
Exactly. An exchange of strokes between two people. It consists of a stimulus from one person's ego state and a response from the other person's ego state.
And Burnett laid out these, rules for how these transactions work. Rules that give us power.
Incredible power, potentially. He identified 3 key rules that govern communication, and understanding them is, well, incredibly useful.
Okay, let's hear them. Rule number 1.
Rule 1. When transactions are complementary, they can go on indefinitely.
Complementary, meaning?
Meaning when someone responds from the ego state, you sort of invited them to respond from. So, if you speak parent to child, and they respond child to parent, or adult to adult, and they respond adult to adult, the lines of communication are parallel, they don't cross.
And the conversation just flows?
It flows beautifully, harmoniously. It can continue without friction, almost endlessly sometimes.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine speaker A, maybe from their parent ego state, says, "Sit down in your seat now."
Okay.
And speaker B responds from their child state, "I don't want to."
Right.
A continues from parent, "You will do as you are told." And B retorts from child, "Ooh, you're always telling me off. See how it locks in."
Yeah, it just spirals.
Yeah.
Because the ego states are perfectly matched in opposition.
Exactly. So the takeaway here is if you want to prolong a conversation, build rapport, keep a connection going smoothly, keep your transactions complementary, respond from the ego state they seem to be inviting.
Okay, that's useful. What's rule number 2?
Rule 2 offers a different kind of power. When transactions are crossed, the conversation cannot progress.
Crossed. So the lines aren't parallel anymore.
Exactly. This happens when the response comes from an unexpected ego state, an ego state that wasn't invited by the stimulus. And it fundamentally disrupts the flow.
Like slamming on the brakes in the conversation.
Pretty much. Think about Jenny maybe speaking from her adult state, logically asking Jim, how are you doing today?
Okay, adult to adult invitation.
Right. But Jim responds from his child state, maybe defensively, why do you even care?
Ooh. Yeah, that stops things cold.
It does. Or Pete from his controlling parent snaps, you're late again.
Yeah.
Expecting maybe an adapted child response, like, sorry. But Paul fires back, also from his controlling parent, how dare you speak to me like that?
Right. Parent clash. Communication wall.
Instant wall. So this rule is incredibly useful if you actually want to stop a conversation or maybe reset a really difficult dynamic across the transaction.
But you have to be careful, right? The source warns it can strain relationships.
Absolutely. Use with caution. There is an interesting exception mentioned, though, responding with intimacy.
Intimacy. How does that work?
Using genuine action-feeling statements from your own authentic self. It can dramatically cross a transaction, especially a controlling one. It's sometimes mentioned, maybe half-jokingly, as a way to shut that boss of yours up.
By disrupting their pattern.
Exactly. But as the saying goes, probably best be careful. It might be a quick route to the dole queue. Use your judgment.
Duly noted. Okay, rule 3.
And then there's the really subtle but maybe most powerful one. In an ulterior transaction, it is the psychological message that is heard.
Ulterior, like hidden.
Exactly. This is when you say one thing on the surface that's the social message, but you implicitly mean something else entirely. That's the psychological message.
And TA says it's the hidden message that lands.
Yes. Regardless of the actual words used, our intuition picks up on that unspoken psychological message.
The classic example is always the want to come up for coffee at the end of a date, right?
The absolute classic. Social message, coffee, psychological message, often something quite different. Salespeople use this too, maybe saying, wow, that one's very expensive. That's the social message. But the psychological message the customer might hear is, you probably can't afford it, which might then trigger their child ego state to say, I'll take it, just to prove they can.
Clever. Or manipulative, depending.
Can be either. The power for us here is to pay attention to that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Your intuition. When you sense an ulterior transaction is happening,
Trust it.
trust it. It may save you from doing something that is against your interest. Understanding this helps you navigate those layered interactions with much more awareness.
So putting it all together.
Oh.
Understanding these 3 rules, complementary, crossed, ulterior, ardent, it gives you huge leverage in communication.
Immense power. Whether you want to keep a good conversation flowing, consciously stop a difficult one, or wisely figure out what's really being said underneath the words, TA offers the playbook.
Okay, so we understand ego states, strokes, transactions. What about how we spend our time overall? T talks about time structuring, right?
Yes, absolutely. Building on that need for strokes, TA suggests we humans actively structure our time, partly to avoid what Brené called structure hunger.
Structure hunger.
Yeah, basically the pain of boredom. We need stimulation, we need strokes, and TA identifies 6 main ways we go about structuring our time to get them, ranging from low risk to high risk emotionally.
6 ways. Okay, what's the lowest risk?
Lowest emotional risk is withdrawal, just pulling away.
Being alone with your thoughts.
Exactly. Processing things, daydreaming, maybe just needing space. You don't get strokes from others when you withdraw, obviously.
Right.
So if it goes on too long, it can lead to loneliness or depression. But in itself, it's the lowest risk way to structure time.
Makes sense. What's next up the ladder?
Next are rituals. These are those predictable, very low-risk exchanges of strokes.
Like saying good morning.
Exactly. Hi, how are you? Fine, thanks. How are you? Often we're not genuinely asking for a deep answer.
We're just acknowledging each other's existence.
Precisely. They provide basic maintenance strokes. They keep the channels open, but they don't provide deep connection. But people do notice they feel put out if these simple rituals aren't reciprocated.
Yeah, you notice if someone ignores your hello after rituals.
In pastimes. This is engaging in those safe, generally superficial conversations about common topics.
Like chatting about the weather or sports or
politics, music, fashion, what was on TV last night.
Yeah.
You're not usually trying to solve deep problems here.
You're just passing the time.
Passing the time, yes, but also exchanging strokes, testing the waters, maybe figuring out who you might want to get to know better, all without much emotional risk.
Okay, what's number 4?
Fourth are activities. This is when we direct our energy towards external tasks, our jobs, hobbies, cleaning the house, fixing the car,
Doing stuff.
doing stuff. And activities are actually a great source of strokes. You get praise, maybe you get paid, sometimes you get criticism.
And remember, negative strokes are still strokes.
Exactly. Better than being ignored. Plus, activities naturally create opportunities for other kinds of time structuring, rituals, pastimes, maybe even games or intimacy can happen during an activity.
Right. Now, higher up the risk scale, you mentioned rackets and games.
Yes. Byrne defined games as an ongoing series of complementary transactions which lead to a well-defined, predictable outcome. These generate intense strokes.
Intense.
Often very intense, yeah. But they frequently start feeling positive and then suddenly switch, ending negatively with a specific emotional payoff. We'll definitely dive deeper into games in a moment.
Okay. Saving the drama. What's the final way, the highest risk?
The final, highest risk and potentially highest reward way is intimacy.
Intimacy, not just physical, right?
Not at all. In TA, intimacy means being truly open, honest, authentic, exchanging strokes without any hidden agenda and completely in the here and now.
Vulnerable.
Extremely vulnerable. It allows for genuine feelings, often from the free child ego state, to emerge and be shared. It doesn't always need words, and it's not limited to romantic partners, though it certainly feels safest in strong, trusting relationships.
But many people avoid it.
Yes. The source notes that many people are actually scared of intimacy. They find it too risky, too exposing, so they unconsciously seek strokes through these other, less vulnerable, safer methods like rituals, pastimes, or even games.
So another reflection point for the listener.
Definitely. When you look at how you structure your time day to day, week to week, what's the balance you're striking between these lower risk ways of getting strokes and that potentially more rewarding but definitely riskier intimacy? What might that balance tell you about your current needs or fears?
That's a powerful question. Okay, you mentioned games. Let's dive into that because that feeling of, oh no, not this again, is so common.
It really is. Have you ever found yourself thinking, I just cannot believe this has happened to me again?
Absolutely. Or, why does this always happen to me?
Yeah. Right. Those feelings, Tia suggests, are often a huge flashing sign that you've just been involved in playing a psychological game.
And Byrne had that great quote.
He did. Famously, he said, do not ask whether you are playing a game, ask which game you are playing. Implying we all play them to some extent.
Okay, but why do we play them if they often end badly?
Well, two main reasons, according to TA. Firstly, to get strokes, often intense ones, without having to risk the vulnerability of genuine intimacy.
Ah, okay. Safer in a weird way.
In a predictable, if often painful way.
Yeah.
And secondly, we play games to confirm or reinforce subconscious beliefs we hold about life. Beliefs that are usually negative and often wrongly held.
To prove ourselves right, even if it's about something negative.
Exactly. So Willems and Brown, other key TA figures, they defined a game more technically as a series of duplex transactions which leads to a switch and a well-defined, predictable payoff which justifies a not okay or discounted position.
Okay, let's break that down. Duplex transaction,
Yeah.
That's the ulterior one, right? Rule 3.
Precisely. Saying one thing socially, meaning another psychologically, games usually kick off with these layered ulterior messages. Remember, only about 8% of communication is the actual words.
The psychological message is what gets heard.
Right. Then comes the switch.
The uh-oh moment.
Yeah, that sudden, often jarring point in the interaction where things feel like they're going wrong, you suddenly feel confused, maybe scared, maybe angry. That's your racket feeling surfacing. The hidden agenda flips into view.
And that leads to the payoff.
The payoff, which is that predictable emotional outcome. It's the confirmation, the evidence that whatever negative and likely untrue thought you hold about yourself, others, or life is indeed correct. It justifies feeling that familiar, not okay way.
Can we walk through an example? The yes but game is a classic, isn't it?
The absolute classic. So one person presents a problem. They seem to be inviting others, maybe in a group or just one-on-one, to offer solutions. I just don't know what to do about X.
Okay, so they sound like they're in their adult state asking for help.
That's the social message, yes. Adult asking for adult input. But every single suggestion that's offered
Gets shot down.
gets politely but firmly rejected. Yes, I could try that, but, that's a good idea, but.
So what's the psychological message? What are they really doing?
On the deeper psychological level, the player is actually demonstrating that nobody can really help them, that they are, in a way, beyond help, or perhaps that no one else can control them or tell them what to do.
Okay, and the switch happens when?
The switch happens when the other person or people finally give up. They get exhausted, frustrated, run out of ideas. They stop trying to help.
And the payoff for the yes but player?
Is that internal confirmation? See, nobody can really help me. Often accompanied by familiar feelings, maybe sadness, maybe a kind of smug frustration, maybe anger. Emotions they learned way back were acceptable ways to get strokes or manage situations. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And what about the person who is trying to help? They get a payoff too, right?
Absolutely. It always takes two to play a game. The person trying to help often ends up feeling helpless, inadequate, frustrated, which might reinforce their own script belief like, I'm not good at helping people, or my advice is never good enough. Both players walk away with their negative beliefs confirmed.
Wow. It's quite a dynamic. So how do you stop playing these games if they're often unconscious?
Well, the crucial first step is awareness, recognition. You have to start identifying the games you tend to play.
How? What should you look for?
Ask yourself, what patterns keep showing up in my life, in my relationships? What predictable sequences of events seem to happen over and over, especially ones that end uncomfortably? What feelings do I often end up having after certain kinds of interactions? That repetitive feeling, that predictable outcome, that's your clue.
And maybe working with someone, like a TA therapist.
That can be incredibly helpful, yes, because they're trained to spot these patterns. They can help bring these unconscious games into your conscious awareness, allowing you to, as the source says, chew them over.
Chew them over. I like that.
Yeah, and then decide. Do you want to keep playing this game, getting the same old negative payoff? Or do you choose, consciously, to do things differently, to step out of the game before the switch and payoff happen?
So it's about recognizing the pattern and choosing a different response.
Exactly. Avoiding the negative payoff by refusing to play your usual part. It takes awareness and practice, but it's incredibly liberating.
It really does sound, it's fascinating how these patterns, once you shine a light on them, can actually be understood and changed. It's not just, the way things are.
Not at all. Which leads us perfectly into the final big TA concept. Script.
Script. Okay, now this word can sound a bit deterministic, like fate.
It often gets misunderstood that way, yes. But in TA, script is absolutely not about destiny or unavoidable fate. It's about something we unconsciously choose early in life.
And therefore.
And therefore, crucially, something we can change.
Okay, that's a vital distinction. So what is a script in TA terms?
Richard Erskine defined it well. A life plan based on decisions which limit a person's ability to problem solve and relate intimately with people.
A life plan based on limiting decisions made when we were young.
Exactly. These life plans, these core beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world, they're usually formed unconsciously in childhood. They're essentially survival strategies we adopted to navigate our early environment and make sense of things to get our needs met as best we could.
Can you give an example of how that works?
Sure, let's use the example of Bob from the source material. Imagine if, when Bob was a little boy, every time he cried or showed vulnerability, he was maybe punished or shamed or told, big boys don't cry.
Okay, a common enough experience, unfortunately.
Right, so little Bob quickly learns, okay, showing emotion is dangerous, it leads to bad things. He makes an unconscious decision to suppress his feelings, and that decision back then served a purpose. It kept him feeling safer in his childhood world.
It was adaptive at the time.
Exactly. But now, fast forward, Bob's an adult. And that same deeply rooted script decision, don't show emotion, is still running the show.
And causing problems.
It's likely causing big problems, especially in his personal life. Maybe his partner feels he's cold, remote, emotionally unavailable. They can't connect deeply because Bob's script prevents him from showing vulnerability.
So how would TA help Bob?
Well, a TA therapist would work with Bob to bring these unconscious script beliefs about emotions right into his conscious awareness.
Shine a light on them.
Exactly. Explore where they came from, understand how they were helpful then, but how they're limiting him now. And the crucial part is empowering Bob to see that since he made that decision originally, he now has the power as an adult to change it, if he chooses to.
Well, it's not set in stone.
Not at all. And the potential outcome for Bob, maybe a much richer, more connected relationship, less internal stress from constantly suppressing feelings, the ability to actually talk about what's going on inside him, at least with people he trusts.
So the really empowering message here, it echoes right back to those core principles we started with.
It really does. Since we made these unconscious script decisions way back when, we inherently possess the power to change them now. We hold that power.
We're not just puppets of our past.
Not unless we choose to remain so.
Hmm.
By bravely identifying and challenging these limiting script beliefs, we open up the possibility, the opportunity to lead, as the source puts it, more spontaneous, flexible, and intimate lives.
That's incredibly hopeful.
It is, and it really prompts another important question for you. Listening.
Yeah.
What unspoken beliefs, what rules for living that you might have formed long, long ago could be subtly shaping your destiny today? Your choices, your relationships, your feelings, and how might just understanding them empower you to start rewriting your own future, maybe starting right now?
Wow. Okay. We have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into transactional analysis.
We really have. It's been quite a journey from those liberating core principles.
People are okay. We can all think. We decide our destiny.
Right, through the inner workings of our parent, adult, and child ego states.
Uncovering that hidden language of strokes and those rules of communication.
Complementary, crossed, ulterior.
And then examining how we structure our time, why we play psychological games, and how we live according to these life scripts.
And the beauty of TA, I think, is that it offers this really practical, really accessible framework for understanding, as Ian Tollinson said, how we humans are wired up.
It really does feel like a shortcut sometimes. A way to get well informed about yourself and about others relatively quickly. It delivers those aha moments.
And gives you actionable insights, not just theory.
So let's bring it home. What does all of this mean for you, the listener, right here, right now?
Well, hopefully, with this knowledge, you can start to not just vaguely notice, but really spot your own patterns, understand the dynamics playing out in your relationships more clearly.
And it's about empowerment, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about empowering you to step back, even just for a moment, from the automatic reaction and make conscious, intentional choices. Choices that can start to reshape your interactions and ultimately your life.
So as a final thought, we really invite you to consider just one interaction you've had recently, or maybe one personal pattern you recognize that perhaps makes a little more sense now after this deep dive.
And just ask yourself, what one small shift might I choose to make next time? Or what one question might I ask myself to begin rewriting my own script? Maybe for a life that feels just a little more spontaneous, a bit more flexible, or perhaps even allows for a touch more intimacy, starting today.